Oh, there's nothing like popping the top off a fresh can of primer. Let's get some models done. Wow, welcome back to the Romans Go Festival. Big Mek here, and it's time for another episode. Not for October. This is still really awkward. Let's get into it. Oh, I have the power. All right, enough of that. Let's actually get into the video. Now, this is different than the video that I did in October, which I will link somewhere up there, which were the actual like physical tips and tricks on getting your models painted and getting them to the tabletop. And all of those still hold perfectly true. What we're talking about in this video is a little different. We are talking about the mental game of how to keep your momentum going. It's one thing to do all the tips and tricks. It's another thing when you just don't feel like painting or you're a little burned out on the hobby. How do you get over that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, first let's address the reason why you have hobby burnout. Usually it comes down to one of two things. One is kind of what I've been feeling, which is you've gone a little too hard and a little too deep all at once into the hobby, and it's just been too much. The hobby starts to feel like work or you've done too much of it. Obviously, I just finished October where I did 31 videos in 31 days. Worked on painting 1,500 points worth of beast snagas and about a zillion other projects all at the same time. So like 100% of my free time for an entire month has not just been Warhammer, but specifically Orc Warhammer. So like I'm very much feeling like putting the green guys away for a little bit and painting something else, doing something else just to have a palette cleanser, right? So it's very, very real to like go a little too far. So we're going to talk about that because that's what I've been personally getting over. The other most common reason why people have hobby burnout is just life, right? Like all of those things that get you down in real life definitely affect your hobby and whether or not you want to do them. Regardless of, you know, whatever those external pressures are, whether they're like huge international or national things, or more commonly, things right at home, right? Job's not going well or kids are sick, things like that, right? It can be really difficult to pick up the hobby. And we're going to get into that as well. So yeah, let's get into talking about mental blocks and getting back into your hobby or keeping your momentum going so that when you do feel like doing it again, you're now not depressed that you didn't get anything done. Am I making sense? I think I'm making sense. All right, so how did I get over the hobby burnout? Well, first of all, I leaned into the hobby some more. I know that's going to sound kind of whack, but hear me out. The hobbying that I was doing in particular was very much this, right? It was making videos. It was doing all the things behind the scenes to make the videos and film the videos and have things to film and talk about, and then doing the actual filming and editing and uploading and all that. And it was a lot of work, but what I wasn't doing was putting paint on my brush, putting my brush on my models, and that's what I really wanted to do. Now, what you want to do is totally different for everybody. For some people, it could be getting reps in to do competitive gaming. For some people, it could be, you know, doing a bunch of list building or reading the lore. It doesn't matter. It's whatever it is that you're really wanting to do. So if you've been doing a lot of hobbying, but it's not the specific kind of hobbying you want, it is totally cool to take a break from all the hobbying that you're doing too much of that you don't like to work on the thing that you do like. And this can get like very microeconomics almost, right? If you think about it. If you're painting and you have a painting project, right? And you're working on this painting project and working on this painting project, and it's just been too much. And all you really want to do is paint this one dude or this one vehicle or this one thing. Go paint that. Like, put the project down. It doesn't matter, right? If you're not liking it, if it's burning you out, put it down and go paint what you like. And that's like literally what I did when I was done with October. I spent a weekend just painting, and I was painting the things that I wanted to paint, and it was bringing that joy back in me and getting me excited about the hobby again because I was engaging with the thing that I liked the most in that moment. And again, it's different for everybody. If it's gaming for you, Go get your games in. Put all the paints away. Stop worrying about it. Play with the gray Marines. Who cares? Go get your games in. You want to engage with the part of the hobby that's really drawing you in. Now, that being said, there are other ways to kind of palette cleanse too. We've talked about that in that video and other painting videos. I'm painting beast snaggers right now, right? It's a horde. It is a lot of bodies. So for me, that painting that I did specifically was to work on the kill rig because it was a vehicle. It was a very different kind of painting, and I really appreciated that. But also now, I feel like I've been painting orcs for 2 months straight. I'm ready to paint something different, and so I've been slowly clearing some things off the painting desk and getting ready for a non-orc project just to cleanse my palette that way as well, because it's good to take breaks. Like, look, Mexican's my favorite food. If I eat burritos and tacos and enchiladas and quesadillas and margaritas every single day, I'm going to be really happy. My intestines might not be. And after a while, it might feel good to eat something else. I'm going to grab a plate of spaghetti and it's going to be amazing after having nothing but Mexican, right? So think about that in your hobby. If you're doing nothing but painting orcs and you're just painting hordes and hordes of greenskins, it's going to feel really good to paint an Eldar Falcon or something like that, right? Like, really do something different. Conversely with your games, if you are playing 2,000 point competitive games over and over and over again and you're just getting burned out on it, play a 1,000 point casual game. Bring a bunch of legends, use it. Do homebrew rules. Play a game that's going to cleanse your palate. Play Kill Team. Go play Spearhead. Try Age of Sigmar, right? The whole point is, if you overload yourself on one thing, even if it is the thing you love, it can still get too much. And it's totally okay to like shift gears and do something else. That way the specialness comes back to what it is you like. Are you following me? And of course, it's always okay to just flat out take a break. I also, when October ended, spent a couple of days completely away from Warhammer, didn't have anything to do with it, didn't touch a camera, didn't touch a mini, and I went outside and I played with my speed buggies and did car things, which is my other hobby. But yeah, I found a lot of joy in that hobby that I was previously burned out on, because I took a month off of it, and now I was getting to come back to it. And so the same thing is going to work for Warhammer. I've been on it really hard for a month, take a break from it, do some other things. Now when I come back to it, it's going to be fresh and exciting again. Now, I know what you're thinking. Old Big Mek, all of that is well and good, right? But you're talking about, you know, the first scenario, which is there's a specific part of the hobby that you're overdoing. You still have the want, the desire to hobby. What about the second thing? What about when life has got you down and you just don't feel like doing anything at all? Well, I got some tricks for that too. My first answer is nostalgia. Hear me out. When you are feeling down, again, no matter what it is, how big or small or micro or macro it is, it doesn't matter. If you are feeling down and you're not feeling the joy in your hobby, and you've got the time, you've got the opportunity, and you just can't pick up the paintbrush, you just can't go play the game, you just want to sit at home and kind of do nothing, go find yourself something from the hobby that brought you huge amounts of joy, especially if you haven't picked it up in a really long time. This Space Marine Codex is my very first codex, and this is the actual one. This isn't like, oh, I bought one, you know, because I remember. This is the one. When I was in high school, I carried this dang thing in my backpack every single day, and I read it, and I loved it, and I just, this was my book. Jay on Eon's Battle talks about this all the time with his Necron Codex. I'm sure a lot of you have something like this, have a particular book, a particular codex that was your tome for a long time. And when you are in the hobby current, you tend to read the current book. You don't tend to go back to the old books. But there was something about pulling this actual book out and looking at it. And here's what really brought a smile to my face. I opened a page, and tucked in the pages was an army list that I had written over 20 years ago. And Then there was the list of all of my models at the time and how they went into the force organization chart and my different scenarios I could do with them, and just kind of reconnecting with my old self on what I used to think, how I used to do my armies. It gives your brain all of those happy endorphins, right? You just engage all of those chemicals and they just flood in there, and you can't help but be like, yeah, things were better then. And it actually can kind of like help you with that depression or getting out of that slump, and just seeing, smelling, touching these lodestones, these things that hold so much for you personally. This codex means nothing to you. This codex, this particular codex, means everything to me. I have another one that's perfect that I bought to have a nice one in my collection. But this one, this particular one that's falling apart, that's bent, that has my name written in it, it's this one, right? So go find that. Go find your touchstone, go find your lodestone, and just sit down with it and enjoy it. The other thing that I've done that I can really recommend is to, we'll just come out and say it, play with your toys. I know that this is going to sound ridiculous, especially coming from an old dude. It's okay to be 9 again. It is. I totally admit I took all my painted minis out. I mean, you saw the video when I was setting up my whole army at the end of October. But after that, you know, again, feeling just kind of burnt out on everything. They were still kind of scattered everywhere. I hadn't like put them away, you know, in their bins and whatnot. It was fun to just put out a board and like set a couple of squads up and move them around and just kind of like, oh, I'm going to put out all my buggies. I put out all the buggies and just kind of like played with them a little bit and rearranged them. And I was like, oh, you know what? I put out all the walkers and put all the buggies away and put out all the walkers, and just, then I went and grabbed one of my other armies and I was like, oh, I should make a battle scene, right? I set it all up as a battle scene. I didn't take any pictures. I didn't post on Instagram. I didn't make a video for it. It was just for me. I just sat down and literally played with my little army men. And it's totally okay to do that. It really is. So yeah, stop caving to societal norms. Stop caving to what are other people going to think? Who cares, right? It's for you. It's your joy. I could care less that people know that I play with my little plastic army men. I'm proud of it. I will gladly talk to people about it. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to about Warhammer that have no idea about this channel, or that, like, you know, this is a thing. We had our the exterminator guy, right? The one that comes out and like takes care of the bugs and the mice and all that stuff. He came out one day and had to come into the office to get into the crawl space, and he saw all the stuff set up. He was like, oh man, Warhammer. I love Warhammer. His love of Warhammer was he was really excited for Space Marine 2. He played Warhammer video games. He didn't know anything about the tabletop game. He didn't hardly know anything about lore. We still had this great conversation. And then he was this guy that on face value, you would be like, oh, he probably thinks I'm like this really big dork. And it turns out he had a love for the hobby too. And he was totally excited to like see the minis. Like, we looked at the display case, talked about painting and all that kind of stuff. We're all kids inside. We are. We're in larger, older bodies that make crunchy noises and have gray hairs and smell funny. But we're kids, man. And it's okay to be a kid. It is okay to like play with your toys and move them around and just enjoy them. You don't have to go play a game. You don't have to paint things. You don't have to like set them up like how they're supposed to. Just throw them all out on the table. Mix up the squads. Who cares? Push your little armor guys around, go pew, pew, pew. It's totally cool. Because again, what you're doing is you're engaging all those happy things inside your brain that flood it with chemicals and make all the endorphins. And that's going to make you feel better. And then when you feel better, then you'll actually want to go do the other things that are productive. It is super okay to do non-productive things because you're doing it to make your mind feel better. And when your mind feels better, then you can go do the productive things. All right, and lastly, I want to talk about getting together with your hobby friends and just hanging out. You know, there's something to be said for social interactions. For those of you that maybe have short memories and don't remember COVID, that was really difficult, even for an introvert like me that was totally okay with having 2 weeks at home doing absolutely nothing and talking to nobody. After a couple of years, it got a little grating, right? Humans are social creatures. by nature, even introverts, right? You still need a little bit of an outlet. You still need to like get around people every once in a while. Again, it makes you feel better about going home and being alone again, right? Just like our hobby thing we were talking about earlier. But having friends with similar interests, right? And I'm sure most of us do, right? You've got friends down at your friendly local game store. You've got, friends in your gaming club. You might even have family members that do this hobby with you. Making some time to just go and chill out and just chat about things is totally cool. And you know what? Whether or not you stick to just the hobby in your conversations is between you and who you're talking to. And I'm not going to preach to you one way or the other. But I will say that for me personally, hanging out with some people and just being able to talk about stuff felt good. And I really, really look forward to getting together with some people and talking about the hobby, because I think that that's going to help me. And I think that's going to help move some things forward and feel a little better about life and just feel good about the hobby, because this hobby is ultimately an escape from the horrors of existence of reality. Again, whether those horrors are great big giant, consequential things or little bitty things at home or everything in between, there's still stuff going on. I mean, you guys saw I had a giant plumbing disaster here at the Mek shop earlier this year that still is not dealt with. That's very stressful. But having this hobby, being able to not think about water pipes and mold damage and not having insulation and cold winters coming and all of that jazz, and being able to think about, oh, you know what? I really liked how that zenithal turned out with the red, and then doing the green skin, and I want to try that on a squad. Or thinking about, I played this game and I liked how this unit played, but I want to try it with this other guy, and just talking to people about it, or going, hey, did you see that other YouTube video? That was so cool. Or, man, these minis that I saw online, whatever the case may be. But having that conversation can be really, really good for you. And having it with another person in person instead of online is great. And even if it's an internet-based hobby hangout, do what you can do. But I definitely highly recommend just getting together with some buddies and having yourself some good, chill time. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. As you can tell, it is actually sunlight out today, which is very rare for the Pacific Northwest as we get deep into fall. And I have been priming some guys, and I believe they are ready for their zenithal, and I'm going to go take care of that. That way I have a full slate of minis that I can paint all winter long, because that's one of my practical tips, again, that we talked about in the other video that was linked. All right, until next time, what on?